Fast forward 2022, we simply want to know, have the taxpayers' money gone to trees grown and forests created? I'm referring to the National Greening Program. So a basic question, Mr. President, from the beginning of the National Greening Program, how much has Congress, the Senate, allocated to this? How many trees have been planted? Are they all native species? In what regions of the country? How many have grown? And what benefit did it give to local communities? If I'm not mistaken, more than 50 billion has been allocated to the NGP since it started in 2012.
Survival rate. Ano to ba 220?
From 2011, Ms. Majority Floor Leader, the National Greening Program budget from 2011 to 2022 is 55 billion.
So I'm correct, yes.
Okay. And in 2023, it will be 2,342,000,000.
So around 57 billion,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
And,
Mr. President. Yes.
They have planted 2,217, 2,217,182, and ano to? Ito, hectares. It's 2,217,182 hectares with a seedling of 1,855,298,000, and the survival rate is 78%.
That's a very high survival rate. I wish that was accurate. Honestly, Mr.
That's their
President,
report.
I would like to see the basis for the 78% survival rate, because that was not the answer to me, Mr. President, when I was the chair. Is that correct, Madam?
Yeah, it's
Sure.
their report.
It's their report, yes.
It's their report.
What is the budget for 2023? Less than 5 billion already?
2.3.
2 billion.
The budget is
Okay.
2,341,873.
So half of that,
Half
1.2.
of that to the protected area and
Yes.
half to the existing greening program.
May I know, Mr. President, Madam Chair, whether the 2.3 billion is a lump sum or whether it's already been allocated in the various regions of the country in existing NGP areas, and the other half are already allocated in the various INIPA sites that we have declared by legislation.
They have a breakdown and they can give you the
Yes.
allocation.
And in the budget, is a line item National Greening Program, or is it already disaggregated per region?
Aggregated daw by Penrose.
It
By
is already
provinces,
divided
oo.
among the Penros.
Oo.
So if it's among the Penros, Mr. President, Madam Chair, that would be 81 Penros.
76.
With the recent devastating effects of Paeng, we've seen how a whole sitio
Maguindanao.
in Datu Odinsintuat in Maguindanao was wiped away. Nothing in the organic law would prohibit us from augmenting the block grant or identifying forest areas that can be reforested by the greening program, by the DNR. That is my understanding.
They were telling my dear friend that compared to other areas in the Barm region, Maguindanao has better greening program for the last 5 years.
Because the first meeting headed by the Senate President of the Interagency Interparliament Forum was held yesterday, organizational meeting, and forestation was not mentioned. So the DNR has always declared that it will intensify the government's national greening program by planting trees on more than 2 million hectares of land, a commitment made in relation to President Marcos's directive to increase the tree planting program of the government upon witnessing our bold mountains. Aside from this NGP, what are the other measures that the DNR seeks to intensify in addressing deforestation, which was said to have caused landslides not just in Paeng, but even way before then? Are we just relying on a 10-year-old program called NGP, or do we have other reforestation programs?
Okay, uh, they have nursery 11 mechanized nurseries now all over the Philippines, and they have partnership with the 27 SUCs for nurseries also of trees, and then they have forest protection officer uh, uh, given by Dole through Tupad. And of course, they have asked the private sector to adapt certain places for reforestation.
Okay. Is this ongoing or are you relating a project that was
It's
initiated
ongoing.
before? It's ongoing,
It's
meaning
ongoing.
the nurseries that were established then, they are continuing that partnership
Yes.
under the NGP.
Yes.
Perhaps we could expand it to more than a 27 since we have more than 100 state universities and colleges.
That's why the DNR has established also its own mechanized nurseries, and they said that their nurseries can produce 2 million seedlings per day.
Each nursery or all nurseries all over the country can
They have
produce
11 nurseries and DNR.
the 11 nurseries produce 2 million in total a day. What do you do with the
They use it.
For,
2 million seedlings a day.
yes, what do you do with the 60 million seedlings a month, Mr. President, Madam Chair?
2 million, 60. They plant it because the seedlings they need is almost 1.9 billion for the year.
So there is no provision in the budget for the purchase of seedlings. Everything comes from there.
I think they will buy. And besides, there are 27 SUCs that produces then seedlings. And I think if it's not enough, they buy. Diba?
You know, I've noticed with the greening program,
Allow me please to request the agency to provide not just the drone mapping of the areas that have been reforested through the NGP, but also the so-called commodity mapping.
Species daw. Tinatanong ang species. Species. And Nara. Anong species din? Nara, Kamagong. These are the species which they are planting. The indigenous species is Nara, Kamagong, White Lawaan, and Mayapis. And then, of course, the mangrove species. Then the bamboo, which we can use. We can make them
Yes.
furniture already and whatever. I have a engineered bamboo factory. And of course, the mangrove where the fishes are grown. What is good with mangrove? In addition that it protects us from typhoon surge and calamity, it's still the place where the fishes
Fish
are
spawn.
born.
Fish spawning
so
area.
it's really for the fishermen. And the bamboo, ayaw na nating mag-cut ng trees. So ang ating furniture ngayon, puro bamboo, engineered bamboo. So
Where is a successful bamboo forest that the NGP has initiated?
I think I buy my bamboo from Quezon.
No, I want to know an NGP program that is
Pangasinan din
successful.
daw, successful.
May we know which LGU in Pangasinan hosts a bamboo forest that was propagated by the
Aguilar,
National Greening?
Pangasinan.
Aguilar. Okay.
Aguilar, Pangasinan.
Aguilar, Pangasinan is a host to an NGP project for bamboos. And that is an area we can visit as a successful best practice NGP project.
Where else? Where else pa? Aside from Aguilar.
Okay, having said that, thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. President. I will leave the issue of the National Greening Program pending the submission of those reports within the week, please. Second, I proceed to our law, the INIPAS law, where 94 protected areas were enacted, aside from the 13 that were already
And we have
enacted into
additional
law.
7 for this Congress. It's 114 na.
And that's where the half of this budget will go to. Is that accurate?
Yes.
May I know from the DNR, Madam Chair, what other protected areas have complied with all requirements that is pending legislation? Are there any
Yung ano,
that had not been enacted into law but can be filed by the respective district representatives or even filed by the Senate as a second inipas? In short, what are the low-lying fruit for legislation? And if it is not yet enacted into law, do you have a budget for its protection? Or are we only protecting by providing funds to those enacted by legislation?
there are 20 filed in the House, 7 filed in the Senate, but they said that the protected areas which can be legislated is around 43.
May we request also the DNR, please,
Yeah,
to
that's a
submit
list.
the 43
Yes.
draft, the technical bill, and we will file it in the Senate and let the district congressmen file it as well. Then we see what is approved by them. Of all these 114 protected areas, what are the problematic? Because it's not just the private sector, informal sector. Sometimes another agency has issued titles on what we call or have legislated into a protected area. Or are all of these 114 problematic? Or are there protected areas which are pristine, na walang problema?
They have research on that, and you cannot pass the legislation unless it's clarified.
Oh,
So, yung 114, malinis yun.
Madam Chair, when I was hearing that in my second term, before it was enacted into law, there were protected areas with informal settlers and with so-called development within during our hearings.
You know, these informal settlers, it's hard to prevent them. Even if you start without them, you will end up with them.
That is the reason why I'm asking this question. Of the 114 legislated protected areas, is it pristine? Wow, that would be paradise. Or are there protected areas that have issues, legal issues, informal settler issues, unsustainable development practices by unlawful groups or individuals, similar to the Masungi?
Sabi nila marami daw tao sa protected areas, mga IPs.
Oh, karapatan nila yun.
Yan. Kaya nga, so, yun. Oh, so, oh.
Nauna ang mga sinauna ang mga katutubo kaysa sa ating lahat. May
Kaya
karapatan po
kaya
sila.
yun ang problema. Kami sa amin talagang ISF ang problema namin.
Now, our basic environmental laws enacted in the past 20 years, specifically RA 9003, the Ecological Solid Waste Management Law, may I therefore request a clear-cut memo from the DNR Secretary that all environmental laws must be honored, respected, implemented, of course, ideally, nationally, but most especially in designated in legislated protected areas by national legislation and those pending legislation, but still that need to be protected. In short, in every protected area, it is understood that garbage is segregated, that recycling is done, and that the basic environmental laws are strictly implemented.
Dear friend, based from my personal experience from my legislated protected area, you have to have also the cooperation of the local government.
LGU.
Oo.
Yes.
Kasi kami, lahat ng basura galing sa Manila Bay, pumupunta sa coast ng aming Las Piñas, Parañaque, protected, legislated protected area. Pag hindi kami tinulungan ng Senro, because we have to get the garbage every other day.
I know, we
Kasi
don't
ang
exist in
dami-dami
isolation.
garbage from the Manila Bay. So, pag hindi ako tinulungan ng Senro ng Parañaque in the Parañaque side at Senro ng Las Piñas on the other side, the PAMBI cannot do it.
That's true.
Oo.
Let us
So,
start with the PAMBI and ask, you're correct, i-enlarge natin yung memo, the outlying LGUs, because we don't exist in isolation. In fact, cleaning up Pasig River and Manila Bay would mean Laguna de Bay as well, and all the tributaries, the San Juan River, the Malabon River, Valenzuela, Tuliahan River, yung
You
atin.
cannot do it
Oo,
alone.
we
My
can't do
God,
it alone.
every-
Maybe a memo to Narpambi, since that's under them, a MOA with DILG, tulungan ko pa yun, and with the LMP, and League of Governors, and League of Barangays. They would be happy to do that.
And I
Right?
think our PAMBI, we should encourage yung Senron na maging member ng PAMBI natin. Kasi sila talaga yung maghahakot ng basura, yung Senro of the local government. Oo.
Now, High Ambition Coalition, the Secretary knows this. We just embarked on a successful, productive trip to the French Senate and the National Assembly, as well as the other delegation went to the EU. And this was a coalition of peoples and governments to protect 30% of our land and our oceans. And being an archipelago, of course, it's good for us. So I am grateful to the Department of Foreign Affairs, whose budget we approved the other night, as well as the DNR, whose budget I believe will be approved anyhow this afternoon, for the cooperation and support that we had been a signatory a few weeks ago to the High Ambition Coalition. May I know, how could we uphold our commitment to the High Ambition Coalition? Has the department come up with a workable, operationalized program in pursuit of our commitment that is based on its existing programs and adheres to relevant laws that we've enacted? If not yet, I understand, because we just signified our intention to join a few weeks ago. But I will kindly request for a workable plan so that our commitment, hindi lang hangin. That's not ink on paper.
They have here. Can I read it?
Very good,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
Okay. One is establishing baseline of current status of flora, fauna, coastal, and marine ecosystem, adapting new scientific methods to determine the condition of our biodiversity and carbon stock, encouraging multi-stakeholder engagement in meeting the 30 by 30 target, inviting local and international expertise to develop super matrix for monitoring the commitment, and intersect these areas to be identified with NIPAS areas. That's their plan.
Okay. Yes, that's a concept note. Yes, a workable plan would be
Padala mo sa
appreciated so that we can discuss with the founding members of the HAC, France, UK, and Costa Rica, right? And its former US Senator Feingold is the one in charge of this advocacy, along with Dean Tony Laviña and other advocates in our country. Okay.
Okay. Our DNR secretary said that during COP27, they met with
President Macron.
President Macron and their DNR secretary.
Yes,
and,
Minister of Ecology.
UK Environment Secretary to discuss these things and what they have to do about these things.
Yes. I know it was a brief meeting during COP, but I would appreciate just a short note from the Secretary on what transpired with regards to the High Ambition Coalition. For the past few years during pandemic, this representation was asked by former US Senator Feingold and the governments of the UK and France and Costa Rica for the country to support the HAC and the previous administration, at least DNR. Hindi nyo ako pinansin noon eh. Congressman ako noon eh. Tapos buti na lang si Secretary Isaga kaagad. And to be fair, si Yusek Leones naman akto kaagad nung pagkatapos nung eleksyon. Kaya lang 2 taon, siguro pandemic rin, may ibang prioridad ang DFA, hindi pinapasa-pasa ng DNR at saka ng DFA sa isa't isa ang ating pagsuporta sa HAC. Goal lang naman to, commitment lang naman, bakit hindi? Diba? Okay.
High ambition.
So as discussed in our budget deliberations, Madam Chair, Mr. President, we know all local governments must have access to critical information on our natural risks and hazards in our communities. And this is being provided by GeoRisk PH, a platform that aims to standardize information and provide risks and hazard assessment to local governments across the country. As if we never learned. 20 typhoons a year, more intense, more frequent, but we're always hit. There's always increasing deaths and loss to livelihood. So among the most important lessons that we must learn is how critical information must be had by the local community so they can prepare. So local officials sometimes deflect the blame by claiming they were not sufficiently informed or warned early enough, even if we have the Pag-asa Modernization Act. And perhaps this could have been avoided if we have a knowledge of the geohazard map, and not just geo, multi-risk, multi-hazard. May I be informed, educated on what the DNR, along with other government agencies, are doing so that we could equip local governments. Perhaps if the Maguindanao LGUs, including Dato Odin Sinsuat LGU, were informed that where they evacuated the people to a safe area was the area that would be wiped out, they would not have gone there. As if we did not learn Typhoon Pablo, where that barangay in Compostela Valley, what is that barangay? I went there with Maricar Zamora, I forget. They relocated the people and they put them in harm's way because the maps were not distributed, understood, and perhaps the maps were geohazard and not multi-risk and multi-hazard. So may I know, is there any effort on the part of DNR to work with DOST and Pag-asa, or are we complete in information, soft and hard copy, and complete with the knowledge, hindi lang sumusunod, which I doubt. Because if they could save the lives of the constituents and themselves, they would use all this information.
Dear friend, the DNR said that they provided the maps to DOST GeoRisk about the landslide and flood-prone areas and to local governments. These maps serve as thematic layers and the platform. DNR also distributed maps to LGUs, but need to study further how to improve communications and capacity building programs so they will use these maps effectively with DILG and DOST and refine the maps further. Ito yung sabi niya, different departments have different data available to them. They have to integrate this data so they can make a better risk analysis that they can share to the local government. So it will be a combination of the effort of the different departments also.
That would be DOST,
Yeah.
DNR,
DOST, DA,
DA,
and kayo. So it's DOST, DA, DPWH, and DNR. Oo. Iba-ibang data.
I hope to see DNR be an active partner with regards to this, because this would mean saving lives.